Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Faster by. Good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 20th of June, 2023. From Manx Radio, 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island. A background to the news and sport and business, Sea-Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person this evening. Spending plans will lead to crisis, says David Ashford. After I'll Learn closes, now what? 2 caught on TT closed roads escape prosecution. The flour mills may not stay at Laxey, and all sorts of delays at Ronaldsway, and the Lake Gatwick is cancelled.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
But first of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines, Faster by Lewis Foster.
Faster by. Tynwald will be asked to support further research into 2 new models of funding for care on the island next month. The DHSC says it hopes to make the system fairer and more sustainable. Currently, most people have to pay for their own social care, with only people who are eligible for income support getting state help towards these costs. 2 people have avoided prosecution despite being caught on closed roads minutes after the TT course shut for racing. Police have confirmed the man and woman who were seen walking on the circuit near the Cregna Bar have received cautions. And thunderstorms in the UK are being blamed for disruption at the airport this afternoon. Tonight's EasyJet flight to Gatwick has been cancelled and there have been numerous delays. In the international news, there are fears time is running out in the search for a missing submersible in the Atlantic Ocean with 5 people on board. They were last in contact on Sunday as they descended to the wreck of the Titanic, and the rescue mission has been expanded into deeper waters this afternoon. Social media influencer Andrew Tate's to go on trial in Romania after being charged with offences including human trafficking. He denies the allegations, as does his brother Tristan. And a public inquiry's heard that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdowns have damaged a generation. Former UK Chief Medical Officer Dame Sally Davis gave evidence earlier and delivered that assessment of coronavirus. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with more at 6 o'clock.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Lewis, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There's no wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is slight and dry and sunny this evening with a light variable breeze, continuing dry after dark, down to 14 through the night. For Wednesday, Crane dry with sunny spells, a light to moderate southwesterly, up to 20 Celsius tomorrow. Overnight minimum 13 into Jardine, dry and fine, daylight maximum 20 degrees. Tides on the way out, low waters at 13 minutes before 8. Ben McCreesh just entering the harbour in Douglas, by the way. Sunset 5 to 10 tonight. Tomorrow, of course, is the summer solstice. High water 2 minutes before 2 a.m. Sunrise at 4:45. And low waters at 28 minutes before 9.
Manx Glass and Glazing can produce bespoke splashbacks for your kitchen in any colours. Speak to the team on 674 573.
The Manx government spending plan for the rest of the current administration will leave the Isle of Man's reserves at crisis point, says Douglas North MHK and former Treasury Minister David Ashford, who's been reacting to Treasury's department plan for the year ahead.
I gave a very lengthy budget speech during the budget debate in Tynwald. In fact, I believe it was timed it longer than the Treasury Ministers, because I share these exact concerns. The way that spending is now forecast to go over the life of this administration, the general reserve is what for me is a crisis level by the end of it. So it's not enough to say the old phrase of this is a problem for the next administration. It's not. It's a problem for this administration, because otherwise we won't be leaving a legacy to the next administration. We'll be leaving the sort of Liam Bryan note saying, sorry, there's not much for you to do. And I would have expected within the plan much more detail on how that rebalance is going to happen. When I was in Treasury, I know there was an awful lot of work going on around the tax strategy and various other documents, and that should all now be feeding through, because like you say, Phil, we're nearly halfway through this TIM board now, and it's got to be done now. We've got to start doing that work now, so that by the end of the life of this administration, things are in a much, should we say, safer financial position. Otherwise, the legacy that this administration will leave to the next, no one will thank them for.
The Education Ministers met key providers in University College Isle of Man in the hopes of managing the fallout following Isle Learn's closure. The organisation was the only private provider of nursing, childcare and social care qualifications. It's led to the Manx Care staff saying it would have catastrophic effects on the health service due to fewer people entering the workforce. Julie Edge, MHK, the Minister, was asked if government would ever consider subsidising Isle Learn instead.
Obviously, the nursing qualifications, I understand that Manx Care have already got the provision required for the training that they need in that area. However, as I've said, Jess Kelly, our principal for University College of Man, will be meeting with that sector next week. And, our key aim here is to make sure that we are providing the courses in an accessible way to everybody on the island. From an education point of view, our key priority is to make sure that education pathways and opportunities are in place for individuals. The Department for Enterprise, as you know, deals with businesses direct. I don't know if there's been any contact with them, but certainly as a government, we will find a solution to the issue that we face and ensure that there's continuation of training opportunity on the island. We do invest heavily into this area anyway, with regards to the VTAS scheme, which is the vocational training apprenticeship schemes, and people do have subsidised support to go on training, whether it's with Isle Learn or any other provider. So government is already investing in this space, and lifelong learning opportunities and pathways is a key part of our island plan, and we need to ensure that we have childcare as a quality profession, well-trained staff offering those services to the people of the island and to help with that economic strategy.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
Two people who were caught on closed roads minutes after the TT course shut for racing have escaped prosecution. The story from Tessa Hawley.
Police have today confirmed to Manx Radio that the man and woman who were seen walking on the circuit near the Cregna Bar have received cautions. They were spotted taking photographs on Friday the 9th of June ahead of the second Superstock race. Officers had appealed for the public's help in identifying the individuals, at the time saying being on closed roads was totally unacceptable and incredibly dangerous. The roads policing unit then shared pictures of the couple, who Manx Radio understands were European visitors, being led away from the scene after being arrested. In the social media post, an officer wrote, "Words can't describe these Herberts. When the road is shut, it's shut. If you want to go on closed roads, we will find you and we will arrest you." It is an offence to enter or remain on a road that has been closed for the TT. The Isle of Man Constabulary has confirmed to Manx Radio that the approach taken towards this couple has sparked an internal review. It comes after we questioned why the duo had not gone before the court. In a statement, Sergeant Charles Maloney told us, "I can confirm that the two individuals received formal cautions for entering onto closed roads during TT 23. It would not be appropriate for police to comment on a specific case," he says. "However, I can confirm that this is not our normal approach to such offending, and the decision will be subject of an internal review."
There's another chance to have your say about elections in the Isle of Man tonight. The third meeting of the Electoral Commission's taking place at Arbury Parish Hall in Ballabeg in a little under an hour at 6:30. It's part of a series being put on to discover new ways to make the polls more accessible. Well, the last meeting was in Onken. What happened there? Chair of the Electoral Commission is Sally Bolton.
We were very pleasantly surprised. The numbers were higher than in Ramsey, so I think that there were more people interested. Not surprisingly, a number of the people who were in attendance were people who were not happy at the committee boundaries that were set up. So there were a number of people from Onken with that particular interest in mind. However, we did have a wide-ranging discussion on all sorts of aspects. One thing that we had a good discussion on last night, and I I expect we'll have a good discussion on in future is the digitization of the voting process and online voting, electronic voting, all the sorts of different combinations that there might be. So that's an interesting topic, and I hope we might be able to get some input from people there as well. We'd like as many people to come, especially from different demographics, whether you are on the voters register, the electoral register, or not. Please come along. People might not realise that they are entitled to vote in the Isle of Man if they've been resident here for a year and are over the age of 16. So if you're not on the register, please get on the register, because then you are able to exercise your democratic rights. And if you are able to, if you are interested in coming along and finding out about that, then please do come to one of the meetings next week or the week after.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Mothership Man McCree departed Heysham at 2:09. She's safely in the harbour now. In Douglas, will be departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30. The overnight departure 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. Manannan, the high-speed craft, left Douglas at 3:03. She's safely in Liverpool now by the pierhead and the Liver building, and will be leaving this evening at 7:15, back to Douglas at 10 tonight. Tomorrow morning's departure, Ben McCree heads to Heysham at 8:45 from Douglas.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
Tynwald will be asked to support further research into 2 new models of funding for care at next month's sitting. Both potential options will incur a huge cost to the taxpayer, but Health and Social Care Minister Laurie Hooper MHK says doing nothing is not an option.
Where we're at now is talking about nursing and residential care. We were originally tasked with the independent review of looking at 6 models of care, how you might go around funding it. Ultimately, this is all about, it's not about where care is provided, in the home or in a residential home. It's all about how much each person individually have to contribute towards their care and how much should be borne by the state, and then all the difficult nuances that come with that. What we're presenting to Tynwald is the result of some of that work, which says we've narrowed it down to 2 options. There's an option which we're calling the mixed model, which is essentially the model they use in Jersey. It's a form of threshold and cap scheme that says everyone has to pay up to a certain amount towards their own care, but beyond that the state will cover it, and there are means testing exceptions for lower income individuals. The other option we're presenting to Tynwald would be the model they use in Scotland, which is called free personal care, which essentially creates a national care service in the same way that healthcare is not charged for at the point of use. We would move to a model whereby nursing and residential care is not charged for at the point of use. It is paid for through your taxation system in one way or another, and then you just need you access the care that you need at the point that you need it. So broadly speaking, they're the 2 options that we're going to be presenting to Tynwald, and the ask at this stage isn't to pick one. The ask at this stage is to say we need to do a lot more work on these models in terms of what they would look like in an Isle of Man context, how quickly we could roll them out, what the cost would be, how people would individually contribute towards these as well. It's a very complex picture, which is why it's taken so long to do the work. But we're going to Tynwald basically to say, you asked us to look at 6. We've knocked 4 of those out of the park based on public conversations, public engagement, and engagement with Tynwald members. We're down to 2. Please give us the go-ahead to do a lot more work on these 2 so we can then start engaging with the public, probably launching via the government conference in September, to start having that proper public conversation that says these are what the models are going to look like. We are going to end up with one of these 2, so let's engage and figure out which is the best one for the Isle of Man.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, Mike Ashley's Fraser's Group's taken states in the electricals retailer Currys and the online fashion retailer Boohoo. In a filing released after market close yesterday, Fraser's disclosed it's taken an 8.9% stake in Currys, and in a filing earlier on Tuesday, today it disclosed a 5% stake in Boohoo. The company said driving growth through strategic investments is a core part of Fraser's DNA under Michael Murray's leadership. We continue to build on our long track record of establishing supportive shareholder positions in attractive retail companies. And for the full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Indian airline Indigo has made a record order of 500 Airbus A320 aircraft, the largest single purchase by an airline in any commercial aviation history. The deal, which was announced on the first day of the Paris Air Show, is worth £43 billion before any bulk order discounts. Indigo now has an order book of 1,330 aircraft with Airbus and will get a stream of deliveries between 2030 and 2035. The new deliveries will help the budget carrier lower its operating costs and improve fuel efficiency. India is a burgeoning aviation market. Some analysts reckon it's well on track to replace China as the aerospace industry's growth frontier. India is expected to be the fastest growing G20 economy over the next few years and has seen significant increase in the number of first-time flyers since the pandemic.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets closed lower. The yuan slipped towards a 7-month low. Oil fell and gold retreated on a strong US housing data starts issue. The numbers now from Ramsey Crookall. The FTSE 100 at the close was down 0.25% at 7,569. The DAX in Frankfurt down just over 0.5% at 16,111. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down 0.9% at 33,995. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down 0.6% at 13,608, and the S&P 500 down 0.7% at 4,378. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 27.3 cents, €1 16.8 cents, and 23 South African rand 42 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.7% at $1,935 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude down 1.1% at $75.24.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future. For a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
On Isle of Man, flour milling is vital and will be addressed at DEFRA's food security strategy. But the DEFRA Minister, Claire Barber MHK, told Tynwald today she can't guarantee the historic industry will remain in Laxey in the future.
In terms of the milling, there are a number of areas that I would suggest are significant and vital in terms of not just food security but agricultural security across our island. And in fact, I think those two pieces, while intertwined, are also unique and important in their own right. In terms of the location for a future mill, there are, as you would expect, a number of options that have been considered, both around redeveloping the Laxey mill. Absolutely rightly, the option of closure has been explored, but also a new mill on an alternative site, and no final decision has been made around that. But I can assure you that the input from stakeholders at a recent workshop was invaluable.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio Sport.
Here's our sports editor, Faster My, Rob Pritchard.
Faster My, good evening. In archery, there were titles won and records broken as a selection of the Isle of Man's archers shone at international competition in England. Leslie Slate, Roger Slate, John Angelini and Rose Sanderlands were among the competitors taking part in the recent IFAA UK and Ireland Field Archery Championships near Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. Representing England, Leslie took the championship title as the highest scoring archer in the ladies' longbow. She also broke the UK record for the veteran hunter round by 40 points and was 2 points off the field record. Meanwhile, Roger, also representing England, shot a season best score in both rounds of the senior men's traditional recurve class to finish fourth in his class and 8th overall in the men's category. Elsewhere, Angelini was representing Scotland in the senior category and went on to take gold in the men's freestyle limited section, whilst also setting 2 new UK and Scottish records in the hunter and field rounds. There was also medal success for Sanderlands, who finished in a strong third in the ladies freestyle unlimited competition to take home a bronze medal. In shooting, the Isle of Man English Skeet Championship was held at Miriveg in Santon with 19 competitors taking part in near ideal conditions. James Simpson went on to take top spot overall following 4 rounds with a final score of 97, with Paul Mihailovitz in second, 2 points back, with John Moore then making up the top 3 in third on 94. In A-class, Jeff Corkill took victory on 93 points, and a strong performance from junior Joe Farragher saw him finish second on 90. Elsewhere, Stephen Rand and Roman Sammer were overall victors in B and C-class respectively, with the highest female scorer of the day being Rachel Bowen-Matthews with an 85 in C-class. And in football, the Isle of Man Football Association wants to get people's thoughts on different aspects of the local game. The English FA is undertaking what it calls its biggest ever consultation with grassroots and non-professional football. The initiative, called A Conversation About Our Game, is inviting everyone from players, coaches, referees, volunteers, supporters and more. A link to the survey, which people can use to give their thoughts, is available on the Isle of Man Football Association Facebook page.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Bad news inbound at Rondells-way. The 5:25 Loganair from Manchester won't be until 7:10. The 10:08 Loganair from London City won't be until 8:30, and the 5:08 returning patient transfer plane from Liverpool in at 9:15, and the late Gatwick is cancelled. Outbound tonight, the 5:30 EasyJet to Liverpool went on time. The 6 o'clock Liverpool patient transfer planes delayed till 8:20. The 8:45 back to Gatwick, the EasyJet is cancelled. Falkland Drive in Onkham's closed for water main work. Temporary lights in Braddon on Ballacottia Crescent, just by the Isle of Man Business Park, for water main work. In Glen Helen, temporary lights 24 hours a day on the TT course for tree felling. And in Cumberland Road, Ramsey, temporary lights there for resurfacing. In Laxey, Ballacollister Road's closed between Croyty Quill Road and Rensall Hill for resurfacing. In Peel, East Quay closed between the House of Manannan and the Road Bridge. They're working on the road and pavements. In Douglas, temporary lights on Ballacomine Road for resurfacing. The Ballymenock Road in Jerby's got phase closures till the middle of August for water main replacement. In Dorby, temporary lights on the main road.
H&HMotorcycles.in for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
A British Airways pilot will be sentenced in August after being found at the scene of a medical evacuation in Douglas armed with 6 kitchen knives. Here's Tessa Hawley.
Ian Saunders of Strathallan Crescent in Douglas appeared at Douglas Courthouse today. The 64-year-old admitted possessing a prohibited article in public on the 30th of April. In the early hours of that morning, emergency services were called to Douglas Promenade to facilitate a patient transfer. Due to bad weather conditions, the medical helicopter had been unable to land in its usual location, and a decision was taken by the pilot to land in the vicinity of Douglas Beach instead. Whilst this was ongoing, a member of the public spotted Saunders standing on a nearby pavement holding a knife in his right hand. They alerted officers, who asked him to drop it. Saunders refused, telling them, "Calm down, what's happening?" The court heard he wasn't violent, but due to his non-compliance, a taser-trained officer was called to the scene. When they arrived, Saunders did drop the knife, but further checks showed he was holding 5 others in his left hand. All exceeded 3 inches in length. He was arrested and in interview provided a prepared statement in which he claimed he'd heard the helicopter and, due to his knowledge and experience of aircraft, believed it to be military. That, Saunders said, had caused him to fear for the safety of his family and led to his decision to pick up the knives, leave the property and walk towards the scene. It just seems rather bizarre behaviour in the circumstances, the prosecutor told the court, adding there was no indication of alcohol intake or any mental health complaint. Saunders' advocate agreed that it was bizarre, adding there was no real explanation for his pattern of thinking at the time. He has totally misread the situation, the advocate said. Something has clearly gone on, but what that something is, we'll never know. It's a mystery. A social inquiry report has been requested before Saunders is sentenced on the 1st of August. He's been bailed until that date.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
Pastor Mai, good evening. Thanks for dropping by for update. Remember, we're live every weekday evening from 5:30 on Manx Radio. The subject of fluoride in the Isle of Man's drinking water has been back on the agenda today. Last month, Tynwald was divided over whether adding the substance to the water supply should be investigated further in a bid to improve oral health among children. A committee looking into the issue initially sought a twice-yearly fluoride varnish, but the Council of Ministers is seeking to amend this recommendation in favour of a study into fluoridation. Health Minister Laurie Hooper MHK admits he was surprised the study didn't get backing first time round.
I mean, I was quite surprised that just by way of example they didn't talk to any dentists. I mean, if I wanted to have information about children's oral health, probably would like to talk to the dentists that actually deliver the service. They also really didn't talk to the department. They didn't take any proper oral evidence. It was a bit of it felt like the report had been written before they'd even bothered to take any evidence, which was quite frustrating. And then when you look at the recommendations in the report, a number of them were telling us to do things that were already underway. And if they'd have asked the question, are you already doing this? The answer would have been yes. To my mind, I was quite disappointed by that committee report, and I said as much to Tynwald. The next step up from what we do already is we should put fluoride in the water. That's the next logical step. That's what all the evidence would suggest is the right thing to do, the public health arguments. But I think I knew that if I tabled an amendment to the report saying we should put fluoride in the water, Tynwald would absolutely go apoplectic about it. I thought, obviously quite wrongly, that tabling an amendment that said let's get the evidence out there in public and have a proper informed debate about it, even that kind of halfway house, even that didn't get through Tynwald because Legislative Council said no. The Keys said we should do that, but Legislative Council said no thanks, we don't want evidence-based policy. Not all of them. There were a number of members of Legco that voted quite sensibly. So that's the challenge I've got, is on the one hand you have a committee or a parliament and a public saying, government, we need you to go out and be bold and do more, and every time you try, actually you're just dragged back again by Tynwald saying, actually no, we don't really want you to do that. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, really.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Lewis Foster, producer Rhiann Evans. Stick around. We're looking at Pride with Siobhan Fletcher after the news at 6 o'clock. Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley at 6:30. The Folk Show with John Barker and Dave Moore after hours at 10 tonight. I'm Andy Wint, back tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT